Great people, so the giant of Africa, aka Nigeria, is holding its elections in the next 2 days. That is the 25th of February. So today I want to talk about 5 reasons why it's extremely important that the elections of Nigeria are peaceful, free and fair, not only to Nigeria and to Africa, but to the rest of the world. There are many reasons, but today we just talk about 5. So the first reason is because Nigeria is actually the most populous country in Africa. With over 200 million people, I mean, that's like a number of different countries just put together. When you think about the example of Kenya that has about, let's say, 50 million, so that means that it takes 4 Kenyans to actually fit into Nigeria. So out of these 200 million people, 70% of these are actually youth. And we all know that youth are the driving force of any economy, of any country in the world. So when you do that math, you actually realize that Nigeria, if anything happens to Nigeria, then there's going to be a very big upset, not only to the country, but to the rest of the world. So it's extremely important that the youth get more involved and they know just how important they are in the grand scheme of things when it comes to Nigeria's peace and stability for the rest of the world to prosper. The giant of Africa is actually the 6th largest producer of oil and gas the world over. So whenever matters of oil and gas are being discussed in the world, Nigeria sits right there, making Africa proud. And at this point in time, we're actually supposed to be very proud to be associated with Nigeria. So, and it's only going to get better because now the Dangote oil refinery in the course of this year is going to be in full operation, and that's a great win for Africa. So we're going to have increased utilization of oil and gas, and that's supposed to make things better, especially in Nigeria, where we've had issues of energy issues, even the issue of fuel crisis. All those kind of problems are gonna be a thing of the past. Other than that, we see that there's gonna be a very great opportunity for employment opportunities, and hopefully that it's not only for Nigerians, but it's gonna spill over to the rest of Africa when it comes to maybe technical positions in this opportunity. So oil and gas, we know that oil and gas, whoever has oil rules the world. So we are very happy that Nigeria is actually right there on top. Nigeria is also a major producer of agricultural products, not only for its people, but also for the world over when it comes to export commodities like cocoa, palm oil, cassava, sorghum, all these things, especially like when you think about chocolates. We've just finished the season of Valentine's, and I know there was a lot of chocolates getting off the shelves. So what has happened is that Nigeria has really been exporting a lot of cocoa, but what has happened now, there's actually a policy. They've said that henceforth they're asking for countries that want to take their cocoa to actually come and manufacture within country. This is going to be very good because of increased opportunities for its people and employment for its people, because what we've seen is that most of these countries just take the cocoa as raw products, take it back to the country, to their countries, and manufacture it, do value addition, and send it back to Africa at very expensive rates. So the idea is that if those countries are able to come and set up here, that means we have jobs, and even by the time, and if we are buying from here, for example, not only here when I mean Nigeria, but in Africa, that means even the cost of these products as chocolate and chocolate products will not be as expensive as when we are re-exporting them back after the value addition has already been done. With time, we also hope that there will be expertise within the country to be able to just have variations of different chocolate and chocolate products. So in Ondo, I know in Ondo State, recently, I think in the last 2 years, they actually came up with a chocolate manufacturing factory, which has really helped the state. I mean, you can imagine how much, not only for their local consumption, but I think by now they should be exporting. So the idea is that Africa needs to stop always sending away their raw products and getting back finished goods as very expensive, that they might even be out of reach for us. When you think about the issue of cassava is what makes fufu and makes gari. Now it's actually a pity with the kind of capacity that Nigeria has to produce these products, that we have countries that are actually having hunger issues. And I know, like now in Kenya, there has been a very big problem of increased food prices, and we're actually importing a lot of foods like rice, maize flour, which should not be the case. And if we actually increase our capacity and our appetite for foods and just move away from, for example, Kenya uses a lot of corn and maize flour for our staple food, which is ugali, if we are able to adapt things like, gari, semo, just other variations for our staple foods, our everyday foods, that would be really, really, really good. So, things like sorghum, other than just the issue of solving the issue of food security, we'll have lesser issues of, importing foods from China. Can you imagine that we actually import fish from China when we have variations of almost 100 species of fish in Nigeria, and yet Nigeria is Africa? So these are some of the things that we need to be thinking about as Africa. We need to come together as Africa for Africans and actually just trade with each other before we actually trade with the West. I know the dollar is great. I know it's good to have foreign exchange, but if we actually strengthen our local currencies, then that means we'll be freer and happier to actually just trade amongst each other, not thinking about the foreign currencies in terms of pounds and euros and dollars, but actually see the value in actually feeding our people first and actually distributing the opportunities that are there within us as Africans before actually dealing with the West. We need to think about the issue of when there was war in Russia last year. You know what happened even with cooking oil prices. It was a menace. I remember in Kenya, people would just, whenever they heard that there's an offer for cooking oil, maybe a variation of $20, people would just be rushing up and down to go and buy it. It didn't matter whether it was a man or a woman. We saw people just campering for whatever commodities were there. So you can imagine Nigeria has it has sunflower, it has sesame oil, and it even has different variations of cooking oil. Who doesn't use cooking oil seriously? I think anybody anywhere in the world that is cooking, even if you're boiling, once in a while you'll fry something, even if you're just shallow frying. I mean, even air fryers actually require a little bit of oil in them. So yes, Nigeria being a major exporter of agricultural products is actually really, really important for Africans. I mean, if we're able to utilize that, and that's why it's extremely important that the elections are peaceful, free and fair, and that whoever comes on board is able to work with other African leaders so that we can be able to put the interests of Africans first, over and above just thinking about the dollar, and the foreign exchange. First and foremost, we need to think as Africans and support each other in terms of our trade and taking care of people. After all, we are all cousins, aren't we? Nigeria has a rich and diverse culture and has actually influenced the world in terms of music, in terms of arts, and all that. The other day I talked about how everybody wants to collaborate with a Nigerian because Nigeria still has that soul, the spirit of music is in Nigeria. So it's actually very important that the elections are free, fair and peaceful, such that people feel good to come to Nigeria, not only just to visit for tourism purposes, but actually to also collaborate and actually work with other Nigerian artists. Think about when there's Hollywood in the US and there's Bollywood in India. In Nigeria we have Nollywood, and we all know that we enjoy Nigerian movies, especially in the recent past. So we've seen even Nigeria just dominate the Netflix space when it comes to African movies. In the last few months, I mean, every other weekend there's a new movie from Nigeria, and they are really putting us out there as Africans, and as I said, when it comes to issues of Africa, we are one big village and we are all cousins. So when Nigeria is winning, then all other Africans are winning. And when it comes to arts and music, let's give it to Nigerians. They are doing us proud the world over. So think about even when it comes to DSTV, as much as it's localized and it's from DSTV, think about how many channels Nigeria actually have. Nigeria has Africa Magic, I think like 3 variations. We have Iroko TV, we have a Yoruba channel, we have an Igbo channel, we have Hausa channel, right? So I think many other African countries can actually borrow from that and actually be inspired by that, and actually start having more local productions that are not in English, but actually in our other dialects. For example, Swahili movies, or maybe Luo movies, Luya movies, Kamba movies. Why not? Why can't we have that? So I think it's extremely important that we support Nigeria at this point in time and ensure that everything runs well, so that there's that continuity, so that, if there's no, if it may sound funny, but the truth of the matter is that if for whatever reason there's an upset during the elections, then we'll not be able to have the kind of productions that we have coming to us every day, making us proud and entertaining us every weekend as we Netflix and chill. Think about also the literary arts. There's Wole Soyinka, there's Chimamanda, you know, there's Chinua Achebe. I'm sure you know all those great people. When it comes to music, you know the Femi Kuti family. They were the kings of Afrobeat, actually. And Afrobeat is actually the heart and soul of African music. We all know that when we are trying to make our beat, we can't always take the, you know, the rock and all those things. Afrobeat, everyone loves Afrobeat, and we enjoy it very much. Think about the super producers. I always one of my favorite producers used to be Timbaland from the US, but now we have Don Jazzy in Africa. See the kind of hits that he's doing, and how he's making us proud. Think of Tiwa Savage, that is actually signed to one of the greatest labels in the world. So the thing is that we need to actually support, hope and pray that all goes well in the Nigerian elections, because Nigeria has actually put Africa on the map. It has actually helped Africa be seen and increase the visibility of Africa. Also in arts and entertainment, we know that Nigeria has actually been a pioneer in the skits culture. We've seen a lot of content creators. Content creators are doing so well that the government has even started thinking about taxing them, you know, and taxing their income, which is a debate for another day. But the skits culture was actually really promoted by Nigerians. If it was not for the skit culture and use of social media, we would not probably know people like Mr. Macaroni, Brother Shaggy, Kiki, you know, we would not be knowing some of these people. And we've seen Kenyans actually just taking up. Think about Flacco, we have Njugush. We have such great acts that have also come from Kenya. I'm not saying that they copied, but actually inspired, you know, as Nigerians have done it. We've seen even collaborations between Nigerians and Kenyans, and we've seen a lot of creativity just getting infused into other African countries. And I'll dare say, if I may, that Nigeria has played a really great part in actually demonstrating that it actually works to actually work for yourself and use your social media platforms to actually make a living for yourself, because Nollywood cannot absorb everybody. Mainstream TV cannot absorb everybody. And I mean, if we were to decide to go to Hollywood, how many people actually get there and become successful? Not so many. I mean, we have Lupita and I mean others. But think about it, if we do not create our own opportunities nowadays, even without you know, even when you're just a teenager, you can just start maybe on your TikTok, on your Facebook and your Instagram, and before long you can become a household name and start making money. So Nigeria has really helped us with that skits culture. Think about Mark Angel and Emanuela. The other day I was doing some research and I actually saw that Mark Angel is among the highest paid YouTubers in Africa. I mean, think about it. Yeah, so it's really, really cool. I'm thinking about Kansime from Uganda. You know, back in the day, Kansime also really did well as a female in Uganda and in East Africa. And I mean, as Mark Angel, I remember I used to watch Kansime and I used to watch Mark Angel. So we are really grateful that Nigeria was able to shine the light on us as Africans. Think about even the Real Housewives franchise. You remember there was the Real Housewives of Lagos, there was Real Housewives of Lekki, and now there's Real Housewives of Abuja. And recently I've just seen that in Nairobi there's Real Housewives of, I think, Real Housewives of Nairobi. And I mean, we have some faces that I know and some that I don't know. So it's actually good to see some franchises probably come from Nigeria, I mean start off from Nigeria and then move on to other African countries or maybe South Africa and elsewhere. But today the focus is on Nigeria. So we need to give it to Nigeria when it comes to actually promoting arts and culture, not across Africa. You know, when people think of Davido, they first don't think of him as Nigerian, they first think of him as African. When they think of Tiwa Savage, when they see her in the US, they don't necessarily see a Nigerian first, they see an African, you know. So we need to give it to them, and that's why we need to support Nigeria during this election period. Nigeria is also a member of many global councils, and we've also seen the former President Obasanjo just be a force of peace, you know, be a face of peace, just representing Africa in various forums across the world. So we cannot downplay the role of Nigeria, not only in the West African region, but for the whole of Africa. And it has actually done us really, really proud. I remember even in the time when Kenya actually had the post-election violence, we had some people from West Africa, key notable figures, just come to help us sort out some issues and actually mediate the key process. So Nigeria in itself needs to be in a state of peace for there to be regional peace and security, and also for there to prevail peace and security across Africa. So I think at this point in time, we not only just pray, but we beseech the Nigerian people to actually uphold peace in their quarters, in whatever they choose to do, and to vote consciously, to vote peacefully. Just count your votes and go home. And we hope that INEC and all the other observers and everybody else that is involved in the electoral process is able to uphold peaceful, fair and free elections in Nigeria, because I mean we don't want the giant falling. The giant has to continue being strong, because the giant actually upholds quite a lot for Africa. So thank you very much, and see you next time.